So My Hero Academia Chapter 307 is finally out, and with last week's bombshell of a chapter, I bet you're all wondering the exact same thing as me. How is this man's neck so damn long? I mean, look at that thing. It would take him a solid hour for him to fully swallow anything. No wonder he's so skinny. Oh, and you're probably wondering what in God's name is going to happen next with Deku and the rest of the cast. Well, in this chapter, we get a nice reintroduction to two characters from another school that I think many people will have probably forgotten about. We see the return of an infamous muscle-bound villain, and we get our first glimpse at the new vigilante known as Deku. But before I begin talking about this chapter, I'm first going to go into a quick summary of what happened last time. In the last chapter, the story took a step aside from Midoriya's conversation with the previous One For All users to show us what was happening in the real world. We will see your faces someday, number 2 and 3, someday. The chapter opens up with All Might after experiencing everything that was happening inside of One For All being confronted by Hawks and Genist. The two heroes questioned All Might about Deku and One For All, noting how society is currently already against the heroes of the world, and the last thing they need is another secret to get out that could take down the public's belief in them permanently. Understanding the current situation, All Might ultimately decides to inform Genist and Hawks about everything he knows about One For All. The story then cuts to 3 days later, where Team Chicken Hot Pants, man I really love that name, Endeavor, Hawks and Best Genist are holding a press conference to inform the public on the hero's current standing after the war. Endeavor admits to everything Dabi accused him of, and Hawks admits to killing twice and hiding his identity as the son of a villain. Genist, with his long ass neck, also mentions how UA and other Hero School campuses are now being used as shelters. God, I hope they do something cool with that. After some intense questioning from the reporters, Endeavor ensures that he will do everything in his power to redeem himself and Hero Society. And in another badass moment, he requests that they just watch him. Why is he so cool? The story then cuts back to UA, where Class 1A have all received notes from Midoriya in which he explains his quirk One For All, how All For One and Shigaraki are hunting him down, and finally, how he is leaving UA for their safety. I want to point out the danger of Midoriya leaving like 20 signed notes explaining what One For All is. I mean, what was he thinking? There's a goddamn traitor in the school. Or is there? And finally, the chapter ends with Midoriya, looking awesome as all hell, standing on the edge of a building looking down on a villain rampaging through the city. And this is where chapter 307 picks up. This chapter opens up with a couple of shots of a city which seems to be destroyed by a rampaging villain. Wandering through these ruins are the two main characters of this chapter, Ketsubutsu Academy's Shindo and Tatami Nakagame. Now you may remember these two young trainee heroes from the Hero License Exam arc. Shindo is the sneaky, calculating, Deku-haired individual who likes to put up a facade of niceness to make his opponents lower their guard. He also possesses the quirk Vibrate, which allows him to send destructive vibrations through anything he touches. And Tatami is the girl who can retract body parts into herself like a turtle in a shell. How exactly did she get into the hero course? Now, fun fact. According to the Ultra Analysis Handbook, or the My Hero Bible as some people would call it, I call it that, Shindo and Tatami are actually dating. There's also the interesting note here that these two are now third years, which does insinuate that Class 1A are now Class 2A. But the question remains, is there a new Class 1A? Or does anyone even want to be a hero anymore considering the current state of the world? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But anyways, as our young lovers are wandering through the ruined streets, they mention how all of this destruction was caused by an escapee from Tartarus prison, and their mission is to rescue a group of civilians hiding in a building and bring them to a safe zone. It's kind of cool how this exact situation was the one they were put through a simulation of during the Hero License exam. Once Shindo and Tatami find the civilians they're looking for, Shindo puts on his winning smile and tries to convince them to follow him back to safety. However, he is met with a barrage of disdain as the building dwellers ridicule Shindo and the idea of following a hero. They mention how they feel more competent in their own abilities than that of any hero, and that this is their hometown, so they will be the protectors of it. They also mention that if anyone did come by to cause trouble, it wouldn't be the first time they had to deal with it. Now, what is interesting to note here is the civilians don't say how they dealt with the troublemakers. Considering how the world is turning and how these civilians have seemed to fortify themselves in the building, it wouldn't be surprising if these people actually killed anyone who threatened them. which is a pretty big deal. But Shindo, actually being a pretty good negotiator, uses this remark to his advantage, as instead of shaming them for their technically illegal actions, he agrees with them, saying that he has no doubt they are definitely more than capable of taking on any trespassers. However, he brings up the point that there is currently a Tartarus escapee on the loose, and that escapee is far more of a threat than just some petty thieves. So, Shindo suggests that following him would be the best option, as they wouldn't need to worry about their safety anymore because he would protect them. Hearing the phrase, "I will protect you," causes the leader of the civilians to lower his head in disgust as he says, "Aren't those the same words that resulted in this mess in the first place?" And without any more conversation, Shindo and Tatami are ordered to leave the building. Man, the world really has lost its faith in hero society. But I'm not gonna lie, seeing the world all torn to shreds like this and having civilians set up their own factions really makes you feel the impact the war had on society. It wasn't just a one and done arc, it was an arc that has had a major impact on the overall world, which is really cool and interesting to see. And I hope we get to see more factions like these building dwellers interact with heroes, because it's a fascinating dynamic. Heroes have always been seen as beings beyond the ordinary, but now the public are realizing that the only thing separating them from the heroes is a title. I mean, what's to say one of these civilians doesn't have an Omega level quirk? They were all born with powers, so it wouldn't be surprising. But anyway, following their failed rescue attempt, Shindo and Tatami begin to leave the area. And during this walk of shame, Tatami begins to meme on Shindo. Alright, new favorite character right here. Forget what I said earlier, she 100% deserves to be in the hero course for this. Hearing these classy comments, Shindo's nice guy facade quickly fades and his true nature is revealed as he mentions how he could have just reduced the building to rubble with his quirk and carried them from it one by one. There's the real Shindo we all know and love. But before he can finish his rant, the two heroes get an emergency call from one of their classmates, who tells them they need to leave the area immediately as the Tartarus escapee is heading right towards them. Before Shindo and Tatami even have time to properly react, a massive entity comes crashing down towards them, and it is none other than the titular character of this video, Muscular. Rampaging through the city and filled with blood-pounding adrenaline, Muscular barrels towards the two heroes with an intense passion. Shindo tells Tatami to send an emergency request to their teacher Joke, requesting backup and that the civilians' lives are at stake. As Tatami runs away from the scene, Shindo and Muscular then face off as they prepare to enter a one-on-one fight. Before we get to see this glorious battle, however, the scene then cuts back to the building dwellers looking at their city being destroyed in the distance. Refusing to let their home suffer any more damage, they begin to make their way to the destruction zone and take down the villain themselves. But before they can even leave the room, Tatami shows up and begs for them to just evacuate. And what do? They knock her aside, saying they aren't going to listen to some so-called hero. However, before anyone can even leave the room again, Muscular and Shindo come barreling through the building and land on top of another building across the street, which is in plain sight for everyone to see. And so, the Muscular versus Shindo fight finally begins. Oh, baby, it's been a hot minute since we had a good fight. As the two land on the building, Muscular is on top of Shindo, pinning him down, similarly to how he pinned down Midoriya during their conflict way back when. However, as he begins crushing Shindo, he notices the civilians in the building across the way, and he remarks about how there is a proverb, a hero will always be near the people he is protecting. So now, the stakes have been raised, as if Shindo can't defeat Muscular, not only will he lose his own life, but the lives of the civilians in the building. Don't worry, Shindo, Tatami will save you. Fuck. Trying to escape from Muscular's grasp, Shindo places his hand on him and activates his quirk. However, it has no effect, as Muscular mentions he is covered in 12,000 layers of muscle fibers. Understanding the dire situation he is in, Shindo decides that now is not the time to hold back, as he keeps his hand on Muscular and activates his quirk at full power, using his super move, Tremoring Earth. But not before he gets the classic one-liner out, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But unfortunately, as cool as this moment is, it's ultimately useless as Muscular simply applies more layers of muscle, not only negating the effects of Shindo's quirk, but exponentially increasing his power, resulting in Shindo being crushed even more. As Tatami and the building dwellers look on, Tatami lets out a desperate scream at Shindo, and the building dwellers prepare themselves for a fight. It's truly a desperate situation. But before Muscular can continue his onslaught and kill everyone in sight, because let's be real here, Shindo was the only one who actually stood a chance, Muscular gets blasted back into another building by a large blast. As Muscular regains his footing, he looks up at the spot where he once stood, and as the smoke clears, we see the cause of the impact. Standing up, now holding on to the seemingly unconscious Shindo, is the main protagonist of this story and newfound vigilante, Deku. God, he looks so cool! And finally, the chapter comes to a close with Deku saying no wonder his danger sense quirk was going haywire, and Muscular looking on in delight as he recognizes the voice of the man who stands before him. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting Muscular versus Midoriya Part 2. Overall, it was a very enjoyable chapter. It was cool seeing Shindo and Tatami again, and having them as the main focus was a nice way to keep things interesting. I also love the way the world is at the moment, and to be honest, I would love to see more stuff like this in the future of the series, where we see heroes interacting with the brash public. Also, knowing Shindo and Tatami aren't uber powerful like most of the main cast adds a bit more tension to all of their confrontations. Also, look at Deku in this shot. Did he get taller or is it just perspective? Knowing we're going to have Muscular vs Deku 2 has me super excited, and I can't wait to see how it all turns out next week. But let me know what you think of this chapter. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and comment what you think is going to happen next. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.